Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are taking a journey into Pune, India, a city that, has long held this really revered title, the cultural and educational capital of Maharashtra.
A place known for history, for learning.
Exactly. But the source material we've gathered, well, it paints a much more complicated picture. Actually, frankly, a pretty disturbing one.
Yeah.
Beneath all that historical prestige, Pune is it's a city that seems to be grinding to a halt. It's struggling with this profound paradox.
What's the paradox specifically?
It's choked by massive infrastructure failure, staggering levels of, municipal incompetence, traffic paralysis, and pretty endemic corruption.
That's absolutely the core tension we need to explore today. Our sources suggest Pune is currently navigating two entirely separate, yet, deeply interconnected crises.
Okay. One is highly visible. Intense political polarization. It's being driven by leaders who seem to continually stoke these symbolic identity-based conflicts, often centered around faith or history. And the other crisis.
The other is almost silent, but maybe far more devastating. It's the literal structural collapse of municipal governance. We're talking basic services that every single resident depends on.
Okay, let's unpack this. So our mission here is to look closely at these compelling sources. They argue that key political figures are actively promoting these highly charged symbolic conflicts.
Yep.
The fights over identity, culture, names.
Yelling it deliberately.
Yes, as a deliberate and crucially a highly effective strategy. The goal apparently is to just consume the public conversation, divert everyone's attention away from the really profound ground level failure.
Like infrastructure.
Infrastructure, massive financial scandals, and economic malaise that affects every single person, regardless of their cultural or political leaning.
Right. So we've structured this deep dive to follow that exact pattern. First, we'll analyze the political strategy itself, the distraction. We'll zero in on three specific, high-profile flashpoints. Then we pivot. We expose the harsh financial and criminal realities those fights seem designed to conceal. We'll quantify the severe civic failures the city is facing.
And then
Finally, we circle back to the site of one of the most recent symbolic conflicts, Shaniwarwada, to provide the historical context that, it completely dismantles the modern divisive narrative being pushed onto it.
All right, let's jump straight into that mechanism of distraction. The sources really highlight how certain leaders, like MP Medha Kulkarni, have successfully focused political energy not on fixing things, not on administration, but on these cultural flashpoints.
And this tactic, it turns straightforward administrative problems, like noise complaints, into perceived moral or cultural battles.
Which makes them instantly more emotional and more divisive, right?
Exactly. So the first incident is a perfect example of this kind of political transformation. It concerns a Garba or Dandiya event, part of the Navratri festival held in Kothurud. Kothurud is traditionally a quieter residential area of Pune.
Right. And on the surface, the MP's intervention, it seemed like she was just responding to noise issues. She intervened to halt the festivities, citing environmental laws, legitimate concerns over noise pollution.
Yeah, initially it looked like standard procedure, almost. She stated she acted only after getting numerous complaints from vulnerable residents.
She specifically named people, didn't she? Cancer patients, the elderly.
Yes, and even a 90-year-old resident who complained about ear-splitting music late at night. She even went public, alleging the local police were totally inactive, which, effectively forced her to step in.
Claiming the authorities failed, so she had to act. That's the administrative cover story, if you like. But here's the political shift. The MP didn't just cite decibel limits or the Environmental Protection Act. No. What else?
She immediately transformed the issue. It became a matter of religious principles and values.
Yeah.
She explicitly stated that pernicious music and ugly dances were unacceptable.
Wow. So even though Garba is part of a Hindu festival, she framed it as somehow culturally tainted, immoral.
Precisely. So by framing it that way, she wasn't just enforcing a noise ordinance anymore. She was positioning herself as the moral and cultural gatekeeper, deciding how religious events should be conducted.
And that kind of inflammatory language, it pretty much guaranteed the opposition couldn't just talk about noise levels neutrally, right? They had to respond to the cultural policing charge.
Absolutely. Critics, including opposition leaders from Shiv Sena, UPT, and various city activists, they immediately hit back. They accused Kulkarni of selective activism and political opportunism.
And the counter-argument was pretty sharp, wasn't it? Where was this aggressive concern, this threat of a hunger strike even, during Ganeshotsav, which is significantly larger, longer, and, let's be honest, arguably just as noisy.
And that right there is the core political calculus being exposed by the sources.
Ganeshotsav, as they point out, is fundamentally woven into Pune's political patronage structure.
The big organizers hold a lot of sway.
Yeah.
Exactly. Major Ganesha Mandal organizers have enormous political influence. They're often considered untouchable when it comes to regulating noise, traffic, duration. It's just too politically sensitive.
So the Garba event was, what, easier?
A softer target, as the sources put it. It allowed the MP to aggressively showcase her cultural enforcement credentials to her base, score major political points about moral authority, all without having to challenge those deeply entrenched, politically powerful Ganeshotsav committees.
And the actual issue of noise pollution or police maybe not doing their job just got lost.
Completely eclipsed by the debate about Hindu values, mission accomplished from a distraction perspective.
Okay, so moving from cultural noise to historical names, we see a similar strategy of division being employed. MP Kulkarni formally demanded that the main Pune railway station be renamed.
After Shremont, the Wolbajirao Peshwas went.
Right, arguing this was necessary to ignite Maratha pride and accurately reflect local history.
And this is where the sources really highlight the immediate success of this strategy in creating division. Because that demand for the Peshwa name, it instantly drew powerful counterproposals.
Sparks flew immediately.
Oh yeah, intense ideological and, frankly, caste-based conflict erupted. Organizations like the Sampaji Brigade and the RPI stepped forward, demanding the station be named after foundational social reformers instead.
Specifically, Mahatma Jyotiba Phule, or Savitribai Phule.
Representing the progressive, anti-caste Satyashodhak movement. So boom, instant divide, manufactured right there.
The sources really view this less as a genuine historical debate and more as an explicit electoral strategy, don't they, using caste-based division.
It actively pits the traditionally Brahmin-centric Peshwa legacy against the progressive history championed by the Fools and the Satyashodhak movement.
And the resulting conflict just consumes all the oxygen. It allows politicians to campaign on historical pride instead of, their actual performance on civic issues.
And the real cost here is both monetary and functional. Renaming major infrastructure like a railway station. It's incredibly expensive.
You need new signs everywhere, tickets, government documents.
Digital systems, maps, everything needs updating. And activists correctly point out that this high-profile, high-cost spending does absolutely nothing to improve the station itself.
Doesn't fix the platforms, the services, the tracks.
Or, crucially, the connectivity. It's purely designed to create ideological conflict and exploit historical sentiment, pulling public energy away from genuine concerns, like how Pune's traffic gridlock makes just getting to the station a total nightmare. Okay, our final example of symbolic conflict. This one is perhaps the most deliberate attempt to stoke communal tension mentioned in the sources, the row surrounding the historic Shaniwarwada Fort, the old seat of Peshwa power.
Right.
And the conflict exploded after a video went viral. It showed some Muslim women briefly offering namaz prayers at this protected national monument.
That was the spark.
That was the spark that ignited the political fire. MP Kulkarni was reportedly a central figure in the aggressive protest that followed, aligning herself with the Patit Pawan Sankatana, which is described as a right-wing Hindu organization.
And the protest escalated into something quite dramatic, didn't it? Very dramatic, a highly provocative act. The purification ritual of the premises using Gaumutra, cow urine. And simultaneously, they issued the strict demand, a deadline, really. What was the demand?
That a religious shrine, a mazar, located just outside the fort's perimeter, be removed within 1 week.
Okay, that's not protesting an administrative failure. That is a direct, zero-sum demand practically designed to force a communal conflict. Using Gaumutra immediately signals they viewed the site as having been desecrated by the prayers.
And the political fallout was intense. Opposition parties, NTP, Shiv Sena, UBT, they widely condemned the act. They called it a calculated effort to interfere with Pune's established secular fabric, demanding accountability for deliberately stoking tensions.
So if we take these three examples together, the moral policing of a festival, the caste politics in renaming a station, and the outright communalization of a shared national monument.
The pattern becomes undeniable, doesn't it? These symbolic battles, they consume the political agenda, the media cycle, the public's mental energy, and the sources strongly assert this is the deliberate strategy.
Keep the citizen focused on who is pure, whose history matters most, which sound is acceptable.
So they stop asking the really tough questions. Questions about corruption, about institutional failure that's affecting the price of their commute, the quality of their water, their job prospects. Basic survival stuff.
Okay, this is the pivotal shift in our deep dive. We're moving now from the smoke and mirrors of cultural conflict to the harsh, measurable reality these conflicts seem designed to conceal.
Right, we're talking severe financial mismanagement, profound allegations of corruption, and a deeply unsettling connection between political power and organized crime.
And Union Minister Muralidhar Mohol's name comes up quite a bit in the sources here.
Yes, let's start with a clear, quantified example of what looks like distorted priorities. Minister Mohol faced heavy criticism over the allocation of public resources. He was accused of spending approximately 1 crore rupees
1 crore on what?
on a single 45-minute drone show. The event was titled Jodineski Arte. It was purely a spectacle, apparently celebrating Prime Minister Modi's birthday and showcasing government achievements.
1 crore rupees. That's about what? Over $100,000? For 45 minutes of lights and PR, opposition leaders were understandably incensed. Yeah, they argued that lavish 1 crore should have gone to critically needed improvements at Pune's key public health institution, Sassoon Hospital, which is historically underfunded. Let's put that in perspective. 1 crore rupees in a public hospital. What could that buy?
Well, think about it. It could fund significant upgrades, high-end medical equipment, maybe a desperately needed ventilator unit, multiple high-tech monitors for an ICU, or just critical infrastructure repairs fixing leaky wards, dilapidated sanitation systems. Real, tangible things.
Instead, it went on what the sources call ephemeral political theater.
Exactly. And this isn't just, bad budgeting. This is what the sources refer to as the corruption of principle. It demonstrates a fundamental choice by leadership.
Prioritizing political promotion, spectacle, self-serving PR.
Over measurable essential public welfare. Health facilities, better roads, reliable drainage. When your roads are crumbling, spending 1 crore on a light show sends a pretty unmistakable signal about institutional priorities, doesn't it?
That lack of financial accountability brings us to a much more complex and frankly serious controversy. This involves the disputed sale of a massive 3.5-acre plot in Model Colony, prime real estate.
Very high value, upmarket property. And crucially, it belonged to the H&D Jain Boarding House Trust.
Right, this wasn't just empty land. It housed a Jain temple, a student hostel that had been operating since 1958, plus numerous mature trees.
And the sensitivity here stems from the fact that this was charitable trust land.
Yeah.
In India, these trusts are typically protected by law because they serve a public good, education, religion, welfare. Their assets aren't meant for private profit.
But it was sold.
It was sold for 230 crore rupees to Gokhale Constructions. But, and this is a big but, the sources allege that the builder is looking to earn revenue potentially up to 3,000 crore rupees from its eventual development.
3,000 crore. That suggests a massive undervaluation at the time of sale, basically stripping the charitable trust of its real worth.
That's the allegation. And naturally, Minister Mohol faced intense accusations of involvement because of his known past association with Gokhale builders.
He denied it strongly, though.
He did. His defense, detailed in the sources, was that he wasn't involved in this purchase and had formally resigned from his partnership in 2 LLPs linked to Gokhale builders back in November 2024.
Okay, so that was
11 months before the sale deed was finalized in October 2025. And he noted this resignation was included transparently in his election affidavit.
But the controversy didn't end there.
No, this is where it gets really complex, and the counter-allegations raise significant questions, especially about the timeline. Opponents, like farmer leader Raju Shetty and Shiv Sena UBT's Ravindra Jankekar, argued Mohol was effectively forced to resign because he became a union minister.
Meaning he couldn't legally hold an office of profit? So they suggest the influence remained even if the formal partnership was gone.
That's the suggestion. And they pointed to 3 highly suspicious factors, according to the sources. First, allegations that all 3 competitive bids for the property actually originated from firms connected to Mohol's associates.
Not exactly competitive, then.
Second, the suspicious speed of a 50 crore rupee loan, a key part of the deal secured from a credit society way over in Karnataka, whose chairman is reportedly a prominent BJP figure.
Okay, that sounds complicated. And the third factor?
The alarming speed of the finalization process itself.
Right, the timing. This seems critical regarding public trust. The mortgage deed and the sale deed, 2 huge legal and financial documents, they were executed on the same day, October 8th, 2025.
Yeah, that level of synchronized financial and legal maneuvering suggests extreme urgency. Pressure, even.
Why the rush?
Well, the final transaction was completed just 1 day before the Bombay High Court was scheduled to hear the case, opposing the sale of the trust property.
1 day before.
The sources suggest this timing strongly implies a race against the clock, to finalize the deal before any potential judicial intervention could halt it. And that, obviously, fundamentally erodes confidence in the ethics and transparency surrounding valuable, legally protected charitable land, especially when political figures are nearby. Hashtag to see. The nexus of power and crime. And this leads us to the third area of hidden crisis, which, according to the sources, is maybe the most dangerous for the city's stability. The explicit link between high-level political power and organized crime. Yeah, we have to discuss the notorious gangster Nilesh Gaiwal here. He's described as a major figure in Pune's underworld. Faces serious charges, murder, extortion. He's even had MCOCA invoked against him.
That's the Maharashtra Control of Organized Crime Act, right? Serious stuff.
Very serious. And he's currently absconding. There's a lookout circular issued, and police are trying to seize 10 apartments registered in his name.
And the sheer level of open terror demonstrated by his gang, it really highlights a kind of institutional paralysis, doesn't it? We saw this in that recent road rage incident in Cuthred.
Yeah, Cuthred again. Previously quiet residential area.
Members of the Gaiwal gang apparently went on a rampage, shooting one person, Prakash Dhamal, assaulting another youth, Vaibhav Sath, all over a minor dispute about yielding on the road.
And they weren't subtle about it, shouting, "We are the Dons here!" publicly asserting their dominance, showing basically zero fear of law enforcement.
This kind of brazen violence, it immediately led to an intense political slugfest, didn't it? Because Gaiwal's connections to the ruling Mahayuti alliance, the BJP Shiv Sena Shinde factions, seem pretty clear, according to the reports.
The controversy centered specifically on an arms license granted to Gaiwal's brother Sachin, and what's fascinating here is the sheer level of institutional override involved.
What happened?
The Pune police commissioner had rejected the application for the arms license. That decision is usually final, based on threat assessments, background checks.
The standard procedure.
Right. Yet, the Minister of State for Home, Yogesh Kadam, subsequently approved the license over the commissioner's explicit rejection.
How did the minister defend that?
Well, Kadam cited the official paperwork, which allegedly showed a lack of pending cases against the brother at that specific moment of the appeal. A technicality, maybe?
But that technical defense only seemed to expose the high-level pressure being applied to circumvent standard law enforcement procedures, didn't it?
Exactly. And opposition leaders pushed the accusations even further. They suggested ruling coalition figures, including BJP leader Ram Shinde and an aide to another minister, Chandrakant Patil, actively pressured the process.
And even potentially helped the absconding gangster Gaiwal flee the country, possibly to London on a fake passport.
Those were the serious allegations being made. And this nexus is critical because it suggests the police force, the administration itself, might be compromised at the highest levels.
When law enforcement's authority can be systematically overridden by political figures to benefit known criminals?
It completely paralyzes the state's ability to solve core civic problems. All the political energy goes into defending these connections, managing the fallout, while the city descends further into chaos and, frankly, fear.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in the drama of land deals and historical fights, but let's look at the measurable physical data now. What is the real existential cost of all this nonstop political distraction on the actual quality of life in Pune?
These are the issues that are, according to the sources, truly collapsing the cultural capital of Maharashtra. We have to begin with the state of the Pune Municipal Corporation, the PMC itself. The sources don't mince words here. They describe the PMC as possibly the most corrupt and incompetent corporation in the state.
That's a strong claim. Is there evidence?
Well, it's not just anecdotal criticism. They point to systemic issues, like 22 PMC employees caught accepting bribes in the last 5 years alone.
22. In 5 years, that's staggering. It illustrates a pretty pervasive institutional failure.
And the consequences of this failure are visible every single day. The infrastructure is collapsing. Roads are in a constant state of disrepair, riddled with treacherous potholes.
Drainage systems fail instantly, right? Leading to chronic waterlogging, dangerous sewage leakage every single monsoon.
Yeah, and this isn't just public perception. This long-term administrative negligence has even been formally censured by the judiciary. The Bombay High Court explicitly criticized the PMC for its failure in road maintenance.
And this administrative decay, it translates directly into the single biggest measurable drain on public life, doesn't it? Traffic.
Oh, absolutely. Pune is now ranked the 7th most congested city globally.
7th in the world.
In the world. The sources reveal that the average speed in the city center has plummeted to a crippling 19 kilometers per hour.
19! Think about what that means for you, the commuter. Spend an hour driving, you've traveled less than 20 kilometers.
It's not commuting, it's just idling away your life. Losing hours of productivity, burning vast amounts of fuel, incurring hidden health costs from stress and pollution.
And this traffic paralysis, it's a direct, quantifiable consequence of the corruption and administrative inefficiency that the political system seems determined to avoid addressing.
Actively avoids addressing, yeah.
So if traffic is the symptom of administrative failure, the Mulamutha River, that's the literal symbol of environmental collapse, isn't it? This river, which historically sustained the city,
Is now officially cited as one of Maharashtra's most polluted. It represents a severe public health hazard for everyone living near it.
the scientific data here is pretty horrifying, according to the sources.
It is. We need to be clear about this. The sources cite the BOD, biochemical oxygen demand levels in the river. BOD measures how much oxygen microorganisms need to decompose organic waste. High BOD means high contamination, low oxygen for aquatic life.
And the levels in the Mulamutha, they range drastically between 20 and 60 milligrams per liter. Now, let's contextualize this for you. The safe limit for bathing water, where you could even enter the water without major health risk, is only 3 milligrams per liter. So the pollution levels are 10 to 20 times higher than what's considered safe just for bathing. What does that mean physically? Is it just dirty water?
No, it's far worse than just dirty water. The high BOD levels, combined with extremely high concentrations of E. coli bacteria, indicate massive contamination by raw, untreated sewage and human waste.
So it's basically open sewage flowing through the city center.
Essentially, yes. It makes the river non-viable for almost all aquatic life. But much more importantly, it poses an immediate and grave risk of waterborne diseases to the entire population living nearby or interacting with that water downstream.
The city's lifeblood is poisoned.
Poisoned. Yet political energy is spent arguing about the appropriate volume level for a religious song rather than funding the necessary sewage treatment plants to fix this fundamental crisis.
And all of this noise, this corruption, this infrastructure collapse, it's all compounding against a deepening economic crisis, isn't it? Especially for the educated youth of Pune.
Yeah, this city is supposed to be the jewel of Maharashtra, right? An educational hub, an IT hub, a place of opportunity.
That's the image, certainly.
Yet, while politicians seem obsessed with symbolic name changes and purification rituals, the unemployment crisis looms large. It's hitting new graduates, engineers, young professionals particularly hard.
And it makes sense, right? If a city can't provide basic infrastructure, clean water, roads that aren't paralyzed by traffic, a clear and trustworthy legal framework,
It becomes a far less attractive place for major corporations to invest, to expand, to sustain large operations. Why would they?
looking at the bigger picture, India's national unemployment rate hit 5.2% in September 2025, and urban areas are reportedly bearing a disproportionate amount of that burden.
So for a city like Pune, which prides itself on creating the next generation of innovators, the constant misplacement of political priorities, like funding a 1 crore drone show instead of fixing the fundamentals of urban life, is actively deepening economic uncertainty.
It's failing the very generation they claim to be representing. The lack of jobs isn't just happening, it seems like a direct result of the lack of governance.
That's the connection the sources make, yes.
Okay, let's circle back now to that Shaniwarwada controversy, because it perfectly illustrates how history is being, well, weaponized for present political gain.
Right.
When protesters recently demanded purification using cow urine, they were relying on this manufactured narrative of historical purity that, according to the sources, simply does not align with the established, documented facts of the site itself. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, it's crucial to understand the site's true significance first. Shaniwarwada, building started in 1732, it served as the political and military seat of the Peshwas until 1818.
So the center of power?
The absolute center. Today, it's a protected national monument managed by the Archaeological Survey of India, ASI. It's explicitly recognized as a structure representing Maratha administrative power. It's not designated as a single faith place of active worship.
But more important than its current status, perhaps, is the historical reality of who actually lived and governed there, isn't it?
Absolutely. The history of the fort definitively confirms the peaceful, integrated coexistence and collaboration between Hindu and Muslim cultures at the absolute pinnacle of Maratha power. Not separation, but integration.
And there's compelling physical evidence right inside the fort walls.
Yes, compelling evidence that directly contradicts this modern notion of forced religious purity. The northeastern corner of the massive fortress housed the Mastani Mahal.
The palace from Astani.
Exactly. A dedicated residential palace complex within the fort walls, created specifically for Mastani, the wife or partner of Peshwa Bajirao city. This dedicated space, it even had its own entrance, the Mastani Darwaza. It stands as irrefutable physical proof of Hindu-Muslim coexistence and deep integration right at the heart of the Peshwa capital.
And that integration wasn't just residential, it extended to the highest levels of military command, too.
It did. The son of Bajirao Mastani, Shamshir Bahadur Rishuri, he wasn't just born and raised within the walls of Shaniwarwada, specifically in the Mastani Mahal.
He became a Maratha military leader.
A respected one. He fought and ultimately died for the Maratha cause. His very existence, his career, it symbolizes the syncretic culture, the blending of Hindu and Muslim history, personal life, and governance that the fort truly represents.
So the sources conclude that this modern political demand for purification is essentially a deliberate act of historical erasure.
Yes. It's not rooted in any fact of the Peshwa state as it actually existed. It actively ignores that Muslim individuals' culture and influence were central, absolutely central, to the functioning and the glory of the Peshwa establishment.
These modern political moves seem designed to fracture a complex, shared national legacy.
All for the immediate, short-term political gain of generating a divisive debate. That seems to be the takeaway. Tag C6. Conclusion and final thought.
Okay, so if we synthesize all these findings, the conclusions drawn by the sources are pretty stark, aren't they?
They are. You have this enormous and seemingly deliberate expenditure of political energy focused entirely on manufacturing cultural division.
Policing festival noise, squabbling over station names, communalizing a historical monument.
While simultaneously, these existential, measurable threats to the city's stability are just completely neglected, ignored even.
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
the crisis boils down to one of accountability, doesn't it? The citizen is effectively forced to accept institutional corruption, like 22 PMC employees taking bribes, which leads directly to traffic that locks down the city, and a river that is scientifically proven to be a dangerous public health catastrophe. That's the grim reality behind all the rhetoric.
So what does this all mean? The core conflict presented in the sources leaves the citizen with a really terrible choice, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
Do you stay engaged emotionally and politically in these engineered, symbolic conflicts that are designed to divide you and distract you? Or do you stand up? Do you demand accountability for where your tax money is actually going, why jobs are becoming scarce, and why the basic functions of governance, clean roads, clean water, functioning institutions, are just collapsing?
Yeah. So what does this all mean for Pune? The sources argue quite forcefully that Pune's political leadership is forcing a choice. It's slogans versus jobs, disputes versus clean rivers.
And the history of Shaniwarwada itself, Pune's most iconic structure, proves that power and culture in the city were historically syncretic, a blend of Hindu and Muslim, and arguably successful because of that blend, not in spite of it.
Right.
And that raises an important final question for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. If the true history of Pune's greatest monument demonstrates that peaceful, syncretic coexistence was actually the engine of its power, what underlying fear, or perhaps weakness, does today's intense political insistence on purity really reveal about the actual stability and competence of the current administration? Is the loudest cultural argument always a signal that the governance has the absolute least to show for its actual civic performance?